Hello and welcome. My name is Gunnar. I'm the founder of Tagu-Experience research team, and I'm gonna take you on a little trip through our research area here in the most northern part of Austria, on the borderline to Germany and Czech Republic. Our journey will lead us to the peak of Mount Blöckenstein, which are actually two peaks. One is situated in Austria, and the second part of Mount Blöckenstein is the peak in Bavaria, where we will see the stone formations of the Sea of Stones. On the way up, we will also see some very impressive and interesting stone structures. For most of them, we don't really know how they came to be. Whenever I see things like this, I'm very strongly reminded that this could well be an artificial structure. This piece here, for example, is one of my favorites. When you start this little trip from the village called Oberschwarzenberg up to the place which is called the Devil's Bowl, but I would rather say it's the remaining parts of the Temple of the Moon. This piece here we call our stone mushroom. Also for this one, I actually have no explanation how it came to be standing in this position, standing there for a very long time, through hard winters, strong storms, not moving. On the way up, you always find places like this, big granite boulders, and somehow it always looks like these boulders are scattered around the place, like after a big explosion or anything like this. Geology says that these are all natural stone formations, and archaeology doesn't say anything about proof or remains of buildings or structures from an ancient civilization, which in my opinion was inhabiting the whole planet. When we see boulders like this, most likely most of the people would think this is a natural stone formation. But when we walk further up the hill to the place called Devil's Bowl, which is this piece here with the cross on the top, we can see that the stones seem to be placed at least some of them. Surely we have to consider the normal process of erosion, weathering of the stones, because they are laying there since a very long time. Honestly, I don't even have an idea how old these structures are. I have no idea when they were built. I don't really have an idea who built them. And furthermore, we don't have an idea what destroyed them. What we find today are these holes in the stones, which are also part of the name of this structure in modern times. But as usual, these things are named after the devil. And so here it's called the Devil's Bowl. But I would rather call it the Temple of the Moon. Because according to some researchers, the energy which is around this place most likely points to female energies. It was a cultural place in Celtic times. And I would say that these bowls were made by Celtic druids for a special purpose. When you have a look at this big stone, this big rock which is placed on top of all others, and how he is positioned, it's hard to believe that nature leaves these pieces just laying like this. Actually totally in balance, and they don't fall down even if they look like you could push them and they would fall. Interesting point here is we have these two pieces, the bigger one on the left side and the smaller one on the right, which represents female and male energy. So another hint that this stone structure has something to do with keeping the balance. According to Gunnar Cantilli, a geomant and author of several books, here in this area we have lots of different places with different energies which we could use for healing purposes, but again, most of the places here are more beneficial for ladies, healing properties for ladies, initiation places, ritual places, all around this area. According to Gunnar Cantilli, it's the strongest energetical place we have here in Austria. Maybe even in the whole area of Central Europe, you won't find a stronger place than this. This might be connected to the fact that we are dealing with huge amounts of granite all around the place, which means there's lots of quartz crystal inside. And today we know about the qualities and properties of the quartz crystal regarding information, storing of information, directing energy streams, and stones like the one on top, in my opinion, are vibrational stones, also to support earth energy streams. Maybe it's really connected to irradiating streams from outer space, let's say from other planets of our solar system. On the journey today we will see many stones which seem to be placed where they are, not just the big one here on top of the Devil's Bowl. If you walk around on the foot of the Devil's Bowl and go behind this big structure you could see here, we find another interesting piece which looks like the head of a snake. Here you can see the eye socket, and the outline of this piece really looks like the head of a viper or something similar. Now, I'm not a big mud fossil researcher, so I would rather say this piece was a piece of a sculpture, and here is the part where you can see where it's broken off. The other surfaces don't look like broken to me. In my opinion, this is how the stone breaks, and these outlines are more likely shaped. Now in this area I did not find the place where this piece broke off, but it's not the only one. This little baby here is called the whale. It's another huge granite boulder which is laying in a very strange position. And here you can see that after time this stone breaks pretty easy. In this area we are already above 1000 meters of sea level. So we have nice and strong winters here. This recording here actually was done in winter. I do my trips winter and summer because it's a really huge area and it takes really long to visit all the places. What you can see here now is the Bavarian part of Mount Blückenstein, and this is what is called the Sea of Stones. When we move on, we will go to visit some of the stone fields, which you can see now here. And in these stone fields, we see thousands or millions of stone blocks scattered around. And to me it looks like a collapsed megalithic building. The interesting part is that the stone quality which we find here in the stone fields is totally different to what we can find in all the surrounding area. A little later on I will show you more detailed pictures of the stone quality of the structure itself, but first you should get a little impression of how big this is and what's laying around there. The other interesting point is this lichen which grows on the stone. Because for me this is a hint that there is an underground tunnel system bringing up air which contains more sulfur than the usual atmosphere up there. Sulfur is responsible to help this lichen grow. Interesting is that you only find it on the stone fields and on some other places which I think are connected via underground tunnels. But you have no access to any of these tunnels because we are talking about layers and layers of stones stacked upon each other. This is one of the reasons why there's nothing growing on the stone fields themselves, because there's just stones. There's no soil, there's no fertile soil for any seed which would fall on this ground. Actually, I have no idea how many layers of blocks and plates are laying there. It's impossible to move them. Actually, you have a variety of different sizes of these blocks. And still it seems like a big puzzle. You could put the pieces back together. Very rarely we find stones like this one, which even looks like it has carvings on the outside. But we find stones which have interesting shapes. This one, almost like top of an obelisk, or pieces like this, and this one. And if you think about megalithic stone structures, you know that shapes like this are found in megalithic stone walls, polygonal stone walls. Also, all these triangular shaped blocks don't seem natural to me. This one is with a heart on it. Here you can see a little close-up of the stone structure, the quality of the stones in the stone fields. It's very dense material. These stones are very heavy and not easy to break. And you can see that there is no sign of erosion. Here, for example, to compare, these are the stones around the Devil's Bowl or in the outside area next to the stone fields. the crystalline structure is bigger, and it's a total different type of stone, especially this type of stone in the stone fields and here on top of Mount Blöckenstein. You don't find anywhere in my whole homeland, which you can see here, the upper part of Austria. I didn't find any quarry in the whole area which would contain this type of stone, this stone quality. And along with my research, I found out that it could be that this is just another type of geopolymer concrete, artificial concrete. Because this, what you can see here, is on the Austrian part of Mount Blöckenstein. This is where we will go next. From afar, it seems to be the same type of stone. But actually, this is not fully true. When you come closer to these structures, you can see that there are similarities in the quality, but it has a bigger structure. The crystals are a little bit bigger than in the stone fields, but still not as big as the crystals are in other stones which you can find in this area. In this whole area, you can roughly say we are dealing with 10 to 15 different types of stones, which you also don't regularly find in the surrounding area. But like I said before, there's still lots of work to do, because this area also spreads towards the side of the Czech Republic and also further on Bavaria in Germany. There is another hill which is called Mount Luzon, which shows the same things on top as we can see in the stone fields here on Mount Blöckenstein. And where we started before, the place called Devil's Bowl, in my opinion, is a moon temple. And this area here on top of Mount Blöckenstein on the Austrian side, in my opinion, this was the Sun Temple. Geologists have their own explanation about the signs of erosion which you can see on these stones. And for some parts I would say this is right, because the stone is eroded. There was weathering since many years, hundreds, maybe thousands of years. But there are other parts in these structures which don't look natural to me at all. One of the places is this one. And still it's not easy to say how this looked like before, because everything's collapsed, everything fell into pieces, and actually you are walking over stone blocks. Because it's been a while, a long while, since this was destroyed. And so soil grew, and you can see with all the remaining dead trees which died only several years ago, that there was a forest once. And on some stones you can see there's still some moss and some soil on top, but now since the forest is gone, the stuff gets washed away. So the stones and the structures are getting more and more visible, especially on these places where this soil and moss got washed away, let's say last year or 2 years ago. On these surfaces, the stone is completely white. When we move on from this place, now we're heading towards the peak of Mount Blöckenstein on the Austrian side, which is actually the highest part in this area. Here on the top we're talking about 1,379 meters above sea level. Here on top of this structure is another stone which seemingly is placed. If you connect some of these stones on a map, you will find out that there are interesting patterns. They are connected in an interesting way. This is the very top now of Mount Blöckenstein. And here's just another interesting fact. This plate you can see here with this rectangular part carved out of the rock. And here are numbers, number 1 and 4. But it's laying twisted, it's laying upside down. So I'm wondering, who turned this piece over and why and when? Because these numbers are not so old. On top of this structure you can find this carving, which shows the directions north, south, east and west. But today when you place a compass there, you can see it's not aligned anymore. We all know that our poles are moving, but I didn't find out yet when this sign was carved. Here's another stone which seemingly is floating, placed there in perfect balance. Things like this are called lithophone, vibrational stones. But they are different to other stones which you might know, which are called ringing stones. They don't make this kind of high sound when you hit them with a stick or another stone. They are vibrating in very low frequencies. You see, only small surface which supports this big stone. When you move on from one of these piles of rock to the next, it's just getting more incredible. Shapes and structures really look like collapsed buildings, remaining parts of walls. And it always brings this question to mind: what could this have been? Today we know about many places on our planet showing megalithic structures where we actually still have no idea how old they are and who was the builder of these structures. And also here in this area where I do my research, I don't want to say this is 20,000 years, this is 70,000 years. The point is, I don't know. And we have no written history, at least not here in Europe, no oral traditions telling us anything about a vanished civilization. And unfortunately, I did not find any real carvings yet, because the rock is heavily weathered and we don't know what really happened there. And on the other side, this area, the whole area, Blöckenstein, was a very interesting area for the military. During World War I, World War II, always an interesting area for those people. After World War II, this was a military zone, restricted area for around 45 years, until the end of this Iron Curtain, and the borders were opened again. Still, I'm searching for access to the underground, and I know that these tunnels exist. Just all the entrances we found so far are totally collapsed and totally covered with these huge granite blocks, which we can't move today. Here on these stones you can also see this yellow lichen growing again, partially, like here. This is a hint again to underground streams, air streams, which are coming up from the ground. And to me it's perfectly clear that these parts are connected with an underground tunnel system. This part here is connected to the Sea of Stones, and further on connected to the part in Germany which is called Dreisesselberg, which means the three-chair mountain. But this I will explain to you a little later. The quality of the rocks here is actually, again, pretty hard. You can see it's almost the same structure as we have seen in the Sea of Stones, in the stone fields. Just the crystals are bigger. Compared to some other other stones in this area, it's really much harder quality. You can't break this so easily, you can't crush it like I did before with my hand. even if you find smaller parts, this is a very strong piece of rock. To answer the question why I think this is a kind of sun temple, this is the part of the Sea of Stones area which is mostly exposed to the sun, the most southern part. Here you have sun from the early morning until late on the evening, and it was always like the place with most sun were the places for the sun temples. Also the color white points towards this. And for me, it's most of the time the thoughts that are running in my head when I'm walking this area. Here you can see now the top of Mount Blöckenstein in Germany, Bavaria, with another phonolith on top. This is the peak of Mount Blöckenstein in Germany, and this is the area Dreißhesselberg, where you can also see the remains of 3 incredible big stone structures, which I believe could have been pyramids once. And here you can see that this is actually a very big area. And this is where we are going to next. This is actually going to be the last part of our trip today. The stones look almost the same as on the place of the Sun Temple, but again you have a different stone structure here. But again, all these piles of rock seem like collapsed buildings, remaining parts of old, ancient megalithic buildings. In this video today, you get a nice overview over this area, but I will make more detailed videos about the stone structure, the quality. Then I can also provide some testings we made with Geological Institute, and I'm also working on a mix of, let's say, an artificial concrete, but this research is still going on and nothing's ready to be published yet. Again, here you can see these bowls like we've seen in this area of the Moon Temple. This squared hole was a holder for a cross. Once the cross is laying next to the blocks in the forest. But also here many of these bowls interesting point is that this area here is strongly connected to other megalithic sites all over the planet. This place is connected to the Montana megaliths in America. It's connected to Votovara mountain area in Russia, Shoria mountain area in Russia, and to many other places worldwide. Here you can see remaining parts from Second World War. There was some kind of light tower for the airplanes that they don't crash into the mountain. This is also another interesting structure. This stonework which is done on this surface was done around 1925 for a former German freedom fighter which later was killed from the French army. They made this monument for this guy up there, also already almost 100 years ago. Here we are going up now to the main part of this area, Dreisesselberg in Germany. When we are reaching the top, you will see why. On top of this structure, there are 3 poles which served as chairs. There are several different stories. What happened up there, who met there, what kind of talking, legends and stories from old. But actually these 3 chairs which are there today are not the original. Here's one example. They threw it down and made these 3 chairs new. And then you go down to the foot of this structure where this piece is laying. And you can see another part of stone structure which, yes, for some people it looks natural, but for me it doesn't. I think this is the remaining part of the inside of a building actually. And the rest again is laying around, scattered like, I don't know, after what kind of impact. We have these stories about maybe even nuclear wars in the past, big destruction or natural catastrophes, things like this. We still don't really have proof, but we can see so many strange things on this planet where we want to have an answer to this question. To answer this hole is a little bit easier. This was made to mount these support pieces because it was on top once, and so that people don't fall, they made these support things. It's still a long way to go to find out what this really was. But nowadays many people are doing similar kind of research all around the world. And meanwhile, I also have many nice friends from Russia, friends from America, friends from all around the globe, doing similar things, documenting things like this, talking about things like this, researching things like this, and we are working together. We are sharing informations, we are sharing ideas, we're making our videos, we're making our guesses sometimes. And still we also tend to make a good scientific work somehow, because we also have new methods for testing, and we are not the ones who are just blindly believing what's written in the school books. We are the ones who tend to listen to their insight. And yes, we also have our little sphinx in this area, just heavily eroded, as so many other sphinxes on the planet. And pieces like this. Where still some people want to convince me this is broken in a natural way. Even the base where he's standing on is triangular and flat. The only thing that broke off is the tip here. So, for today we are on the end of my little journey to the Moon Temple, the Sea of Stones, the Sun Temple, and I want to say thanks. Thanks for joining. I want to say thanks to my incredible wife Tanya and our little daughter Kadea, and many thanks to all of you for watching, and many thanks to all of our friends worldwide. Take good care and keep the good thing going.